Big Nasty. Yeah, Big Nasty Hall of Fame Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, baby.
This is Mike Allstott, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're listening to the Cannon Fire Podcast.
Cannon Fire Podcast, brother. You ain't listening, and you're missing out. Woo!
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast, live again once on YouTube today for episode 175. We join you today with some breaking news, somewhat breaking news. The Buccaneers continue their impressive free agency run. They signed two more contracts today in Donovan Smith and Ndamukong Suh. So they bolster up the trenches on both sides and ultimately move some money around in the process. We'll talk about that shortly. But welcome back to the show. I am your host, as always, Rhett Matthew. Joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host, the Philly Bucs fan himself, Mr. Evan Wanish. I'm glad we got some Bucs news today, man. We get to redeem ourselves from that live stream gone bad the other night with James, and I don't know. I'm in a much better mood today. But shout out to all of our people in the live chat. And Evan, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm fully prepared to blame all live stream mishaps on James Hill. It is 150% his fault. It's no coincidence that the episode that he's not on is the episode that we have no issues.
Right.
I had no issues logging into Zoom. Right. We did it quick. Right. About 45 seconds it took. And then, we had no issues starting to stream. And it just so happened it was the only episode with him not on it. So I don't know, a little fishy, but happy we finally got some news. It was a little quiet, but now there's finally some more stuff to talk about.
Speak of the devil, he's actually lurking around in our live chat. Mr. Bucs Nation is who we're referring to, but our other people we got to show some love. Frank G says all hail the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, yes sir. Our buddy Chase checking in. Kevin522, James not here equals a perfect live stream. Yeah, damn. I know Kevin. I'm pretty sure Kevin's like a moderator for James' channel, if I remember correctly. I think maybe it's a different Kevin I'm thinking of. But regardless, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Let's go ahead and get into the news. So first off, the Buccaneers and offensive tackle Donovan Smith reached agreement on a 2-year, $31.8 million contract extension that keeps him in Tampa Bay through 2023, and that now includes $30 million guaranteed over the next 2 seasons. Now, for the Bucs, they were able to move the deal around to where it frees up about $10.6 million in cap space. His $14.2 million base salary was mostly converted to a bonus. It dropped his cap number to about $3.5 million for the Bucs. 2 voidable years on that contract, which is, something we're no stranger to talking about on this podcast. But Donovan Smith wasn't the move I was expecting, but it's a damn good move to shore up a left tackle off of his best career season.
Yeah, it was. I agree. I thought the more likely extension was going to be was going to be Ryan Jensen, and it still could happen. But I like the deal. I do. It's a fair price. It still puts Donovan Smith at hitting free agency around 30 years old. So maybe he saw Trent Williams really get paid at 33 years old and thought, hey, I can do that too. So it's definitely I think a good deal. And if you're looking at past the first 5 weeks of the season, he was up and down, which has been his entire career pretty much, right up until this point. But then Week 5, that Bears game sucked. But then the rest of the season, he was one of the better left tackles in the entire league. And in the playoffs was really a big key in winning that Super Bowl. Obviously, it takes all hands on deck to win the Super Bowl, but he was a big part of it, and he was a big part of that offensive line. So I think it made a lot of sense for the Bucs to do this, free up some cap room this year. I was actually kind of surprised that Smith even wanted an extension because he was scheduled to be a free agent next year, and he could have made. He was making about $14 million a year this year. He could have made probably a little bit more next year on the open market if he were to hit it. But instead, he likes Tampa, and he decided to just stay here, and he can still hit the market again. If he plays 3 solid years, he's going to get really paid in 3 years. So
yeah, and that's a good point that Kevin in the live chat brought up, is that you didn't think he would take an extension. We talked about the possibility of him trying to get his money's worth, but for the Buccaneers to extend him to save the money that they did, obviously it's a good move for the Bucs, but he very well could be playing the long game with this, and right about 30 years old, he's ready to hit the market once again. If he's a solid left tackle for the next 3 seasons, well, it's a pretty safe bet he's going to get paid again.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if he has 3 more seasons like he did last year, you're going to be looking at, especially with the cap rising, you're going to be looking at $20 million a year, or maybe even more a year for him, and he's going to be 30 years old. So yeah, it's a smart move. And I've seen a lot of people say, oh, well, the Bucs should have drafted a tackle cheaper and stuff like that. I understand the reasons why you'd want to do that. However, not everyone is Tristan Wirfs. Not every tackle is going to come in and be one of the best tackles in the league instantly. And did you really want a rookie protecting Tom Brady's blindside? So you would have a second-year player who's very good, is a very good player, close to I think he's already close to elite status, Tristan Wirfs. He was that good. But do you want a second-year right tackle and then a rookie left tackle protecting Tom Brady? Like, I don't know if I really do.
Right.
So it was the safe move for the Bucs. I like I said, because I saw some people say, well, you can cut Donovan Smith and that saves $14 million. Well, you can, but there's repercussions there. So I do think that it was a good deal for both sides, and it made a lot of sense. So Donovan Smith, Tom Brady signed for 2 more years. Donovan Smith signed for 3 more years. So Donovan Smith will be Tom Brady's left tackle for as long as Brady's in Tampa Bay, expected to be in Tampa Bay at least.
Yeah. And as shocking as I'm sure this isn't the first time we've talked about a possible departure from Donovan Smith. And one of the things that we had talked about before was how important it is to find a left tackle in the NFL, because they don't grow on trees. They really don't. And the idea of putting Tristan Wirfs, a right tackle, over there is a lot harder, a lot easier said than done. But Donovan Smith, as up and down as he has been, the consistency that he found the second half of last season, especially with Tom Brady being his quarterback, I think has a little bit of something to do with it. But there is no denying that Donovan Smith had, I would say, a career season after Week 5. The Week 9 game against New Orleans comes to mind. But other than that, man, he was solid when they needed him to be. And it's hard to find a left tackle. You can't just throw anybody right there. So Donovan Smith being one of those guys who's been around this organization for as long as he has, it's pretty good to see him extended, and at the ripe old age of, 27, 28 years old.
Yeah, I believe 27.
Yeah, I mean, that's a damn good age to sign your left tackle to an extra couple of years. So we'll see what happens once he's 30 after 2023, but as of right now, the Buccaneers have locked up their left tackle for the foreseeable future. Now,
Mr. Bucs Nation with the super chat. Thank you very
really?
much. Mr. Bucs Nation, thank you.
Oh, let's go.
Thanks,
it came
James.
up a little delayed
Appreciate
on mine,
it.
but $2 from our good buddy James, who was actually sending us some pretty mean text messages before we jumped on here.
He was very demanding. I think he's just so excited to have a stream that he's sending us money. So Anybody else out there who want to match James, do you want to stick it to him? Go ahead. We're open to any super chat. But Frank G says Gronk signs a deal to join the practice squad per Jason Light. So that's it. OJ Howard and Cameron Brate are the 2 tight ends, because Gronkowski's just the practice squad guy. So.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't have to worry about cutting Cam Brate in that scenario. When you got a guy like Gronk on your practice squad, it elevates everybody on that practice squad.
Exactly. It makes everybody better.
For anybody who doesn't know what we're joking about, the Buccaneers posted a video of Jason Light and Gronk basically going over the contract, and Jason Light joked around, said it was a practice squad contract. So if you haven't seen that video and you're listening to that,
excited about it too. Because that means he doesn't get hit.
Exactly.
He's good to go.
Exactly. He's totally fine with being a full-time extra body at practice
for $10 million.
Hell yeah. So on the other side of the trenches, the Buccaneers made some moves today. They also signed defensive tackle Ndamukong Suh to a 1-year, $9 million deal. Now the thing with his is, as far as we know right now, maybe this has changed, but we don't entirely know what his cap hit is yet, just because that deal hasn't been fully structured. So if it's a straight 1-year deal, it'll take up $9 million, but let's say they make, $8 million a bonus, add 2 void years as a kicker, then his 2021 cap number is, between 3 and 4 million, I think. And I think that's almost what we can anticipate, right? Like, I don't think they're just going to let Ndamukong Suh, as of right now, eat 9 mil of cap.
Yeah, but before I say that, Pac-Man 504 with the $1 super chat.
Hell
really
yeah, thank you
it.
guys so much.
Yeah, really appreciate it, guys. Thanks a lot. Yeah, so for Sue, you want to know how I know that this was just like the deal was already done? Like, they extend Donovan Smith, save $10.6 million in cap room, and like 10 minutes later, Ndamukong Suh signs.
Yeah, that news was back to back.
That means that the deal was done. That it was done. Like, they just needed to make a move to do it, and it was done. So, yeah, you don't know exactly what the cap it is. I remember we were talking earlier, and I said I thought it might be similar to the Gronkowski thing, where it looks like a 1-year deal for $9-10 million. But in reality, his cap hit is about $4.5 million for this season, so the Bucs can re-sign it. We've seen a lot of people. We've seen a lot of mentions of Leonard Fournette and Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of Frank G with a $2.99 super chat. Thank you very much.
Frank G coming in clutch. You guys are the best. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, we've seen a lot, so that could help possibly bring those guys back. And we do think Leonard Fournette coming back is more likely now. We'll talk about it later. But yeah, it was a big move. I don't expect his cap hit to be $9 million because they are using voidable years. We just don't know exactly what that cap hit is yet, though.
Yeah. Before we talk about Antonio Brown and Leonard Fournette, the latest on that situation, let's talk about these void years. I do think it just, is important to be mentioned once again, but I think I took this from Greg Allman here. Voidable years save the Bucs cap room this season, but you pay for it dollar for dollar down the road, and you can't keep kicking the can down the road. Eventually, they're going to have to pay these guys, and they will. But as of right now, for example, new deals for Tom Brady, Levante David, Barrett, Gronk, Donovan Smith, they add up to $77 million a year, but that 2021 cap hit is just $24 million. They have borrowed $53 million from the future, is a way to put it. So obviously the Cap Olympics that they have done is important, but it's also just important to remember that they're going to have to pay for it sooner or later. But when you've got a window like Tampa Bay does right now, you want to keep that window open as long as you can, and they've done a great job of doing that so far.
Yeah, so, I mean, here's the thing. It's and I see we have a fellow Evan in the chat, Evan Bush. What's up going on, man?
Oh, what's going on, dude?
And James, wow, really challenging Frank with a $4 super chat. You can't beat me, Frank. Oh man, James. Phew.
Oh man, we can't declare a winner yet, but I like this back and forth, fellas. Thank you for the support.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And I kind of feel bad now for crapping on him earlier.
I can't believe you told him you came from his mom's house and then he paid you.
I know, right? It's just, yeah. Yeah, whatever. That's whatever. But yeah, it's the reason they're able to push all this money down the road is in 2022 they were projected to basically have, I think, top 5 in cap space. So yeah, I mean they have a lot of other stuff.
$4 from Pac-Man 504.
Thank you a lot, Pac-Man. Really appreciate it. I need to be in school right now, but can't skip CFP. That's the way to go. That's the way.
Listen, if your teacher yells at you, don't worry. The video on demand is going to be up, and then we'll have it up on our podcast sources once we wrap up the live stream. But thank you for checking us out, brother.
Yep. Yeah, we got to add it to the Wendy's fun, Kevin.
Hell yeah. Good thinking,
Kevin. So basically, and then 2023, they literally had they have 10 players under contract in 2023. Yeah. So they have so much money, and that's where they're going to be able to put this money. So yes, that $77 million or whatever, that's going to be, part 2022, part in, 2023, whatever it is. And it'll be very interesting to see, because like you said, eventually they are going to have to pay it. Right. And it is going to be kind of a pain to where you might have a guy on that's not even on a team that you still have to pay. But right now it provides cap relief, and they're able to do it because it's a very unique situation. And let's not forget that this salary cap number is going to skyrocket next year. It's going to go up $35 million. So that's a big key there, and it's going to keep going up. Like it's unless we have another pandemic that nobody else can predict right now, it's going to keep rising. So it'll rise 30, 35 million next year, and then the next year it'll go up 10, and the next year go up 10, and it'll just be a gradual rise. So we'll see what happens. John, hi, first time chatting from the UK. Awesome. Glad you're explaining the cap as it baffles me. Hey, it baffles. We don't even truly understand it. So
yeah, listen, I sucked at math in high school. It was my worst subject, and it still is. So once we start talking about voidable years and imaginary money, it reminds me of like algebra with imaginary numbers. Different X factors going into things. But I'm glad we're able to break it down because Evan's done a good job with helping me somewhat understand what's going on. And one more time, I think I saw David in the chat asking about Donovan Smith and his deal. It was a 2-year, $31.8 million contract extension through 2023, $30 million guaranteed. Now, for the Bucs, they were able to move things around, add a couple of voidable years. So it frees up $10.6 million in cap space, and his $14.2 million base salary mostly converted to a bonus. So his cap number on the year for 2021 is about $3.6 million. Yeah, $3.6 million is the last number that I had seen. So we talked about the cap. We talked about the latest breaking news. Mr. Bucs Nation
to do a final bid
with the $5 super chat. Frank and Pac-Man, this is my final bid. Y'all better not. As of right now, we do have a winner. We'll see what happens.
Does anybody else enter the race, though? Is there any newcomers?
The Wendy's fun, man. Just think of the Wendy's fun. Think of the Baconators, brother.
Yeah, to think of all them Baconators we could have. Chase asked, do you think we'll have 17 games next season? It's not official. It has not been officially announced, but all indications are that that's going to happen. And there will be. I hate it. Like, I just don't like it.
Yeah, it really does seem like just 1 week too many. You know what I mean? A 16-game season is long enough.
8-8, you can go 8-8, 500. Now nobody can be 500 because it's an odd number. I don't know. I don't like it. And then their 17th game is likely to be the Colts. That's who it's going to be. And they'll be traveling to Indy. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here. But I do think that, you'll end up getting a 17th game. I'm very confident, and it just hasn't been completely announced yet. So the Bucs haven't said anything or anything like that because it's not official. But all indications are that there will be a 17th game.
Our buddy John from the UK checking in says, maybe not a flashy signing and a little bit of old news, but I'm loving the re-signing of Ryan Suckup. I'll tell you what, man, I do too. A lot of Bucs fans might try and tell you otherwise to sound cool, but everybody, and I mean everybody, is happy that we are paying a kicker and not drafting one finally, right? Like, to pay a guy who I think earned his money. Obviously, we've brought it up so many times, but the highest scoring season in Bucs history, 136 points from Mr. Ice Cold Ryan Suckup. If anybody deserved to get a little bit of a pay raise, it was him. And here we go, baby. Frank G with a $10 super chat, and Pac-Man 504 with a $5 bid right behind him. LFG. Good stuff, fellas. Good stuff.
Me and Rhett are going to be eating so many Baconators. It's not even funny. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. Really, anything, even if you guys put down 50 cents, it would be appreciated. But I mean, this is crazy right now. So we really do appreciate it.
So let's talk about Antonio Brown and Leonard Fournette. We put out an episode earlier this week talking about the future of those guys. And I will say that the clouds seem a little bit murkier now for at least Leonard Fournette. We'll talk about Antonio Brown in a second because I think his situation is more of the same. But I think it's important to bring this up because we talked about it a lot before. The Buccaneers at one point had shown interest in James White. Well, New England announced today that they're going to be bringing back running back James White, I believe, on a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. So that, throws that out the window. But I think it's important to bring that signing up. Because I've seen a couple of people say that, there's no Bucs podcast talking about, anyone but James White. And I remember specifically a couple weeks ago, we had a quote that we used as a, promotional thing that I think the podcast network made for us. But we said on this very show regarding James White, there are a lot of really good pass-catching running backs out there. It is important to not get stuck on one guy just because of that link to Tom Brady. And obviously, we saw how that played out. Was this an opportunity for me to sit here and toot our own horn? Yeah, maybe it was, but it's kind of cool, when we're right on stuff like that. But Leonard Fournette, as far as he goes, the impression, now that more time goes by, is that the market for Antonio Brown and Leonard Fournette just doesn't seem to be doing too hot. We've heard about a couple of teams interested in Lenny. New England was one of them. Seattle was another one, but Seattle ended up signing Chris Carson, so I kind of think that went out the window, and maybe some other teams. But what do you think is the situation with Leonard Fournette? Is he ultimately back in Tampa Bay as time goes by, or do you think the Bucs are still interested in adding a free agent pass-catching back?
Well, you could almost say that re-signing James White would almost take out the New England Patriots too. I don't think I haven't heard.
That's fair.
I haven't heard that it rules them out. I have not heard that. And I mean, it's not like White got significant money or anything, and we know that the Patriots have been willing to spend this offseason, so maybe they still are interested. But I think that would make it definitely less likely. I want to say that the Bucs will still keep their eyes on some pass catching backs. I'm not reporting it, but maybe like a Duke Johnson or a Jerick McKinnon.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. I would still bet. I think Fournette's going to end up coming back at this point. It's just because there are those mystery teams, which I believe we talked about last time. Of maybe like the Dolphins get involved, or the Steelers, or the Jets. One of those teams gets involved. But at this point, I just don't know if Fournette would even choose any of those, because his money's not going to be very large now. Like he's sitting out there for too long, so his money's not going to be a lot. And I feel like the Bucs want him back, and I wouldn't bring him back personally, but I think they're going to end up bringing him back when it's all said and done.
There was Joey Knight had basically put out the news earlier about the Buccaneers making some moves with Donovan Smith and Ndamukong Suh, and one of the things that he had mentioned is that it doesn't really seem like there's any leadway between the Bucs and Leonard Fournette. I don't know if that means that they just haven't made a whole lot of progress towards agreeing on a deal, which is what my mind immediately goes to, or if both sides want to kind of wait things out. I have a feeling that Fournette's the type of guy who does want to sit around and wait to see what his market would be, but it also doesn't seem like the Buccaneers have made him a top priority, obviously, as they've gone and signed everybody else. But, I mean, do you think that factors into the decision at all, or is it just still kind of a wait-and-see part of the process?
Well, I think he even realizes that his market is not what he was hoping for or expecting, because if it was, then he'd be signed by now.
Yeah.
He would have got a pretty similar deal, I think, to Chris Carson, but he didn't, and his price is just going to keep going down. So we'll see what happens there. But then, obviously, if Fournette would go to the Steelers or to the Dolphins or to the Jets, it would impact maybe the draft. So Chase asked, hey, guys, do you think if a team like the Steelers get Fournette, what team could draft Najee or Etienne in the first round? Well, see, I'm not sold that the Steelers are going to draft a running back like many seem to think, but I think you could pencil in the Dolphins for one of them, Najee Harris or Travis Etienne, maybe the Jets, but I also think the Bills right at 30. So if Travis Etienne or Najee Harris ends up getting past, that the Steelers, Jets, stuff like that, I wouldn't get too excited yet if I were Bucs fans, because the Bills are sitting there at 30, and I think the Bills would take one.
Oh, my God. By the way, Mr. Bucs Nation, Mr. Moneybags, Mr. 10K, whatever the hell we're calling him on the show, Mr. Bucs Nation comes in clutch with the Super Chat. $15.
Wow.
He said, I'm done. Rhett, you owe me lunch. Take that, Frank, Pac-Man, and Kevin. It is over. The bidding war is over. And that means I have to take Mr. Bucs Nation to lunch. So I guess we'll have to figure out a good day to do that. But thank you so much, James.
Yeah, thanks so much. Well, I mean, there's a winner, but basically anybody, you're all winners in our book. Anybody who's even in the chat, they're all winners in our book. So, no matter if you donate or not, you're still a winner in our book. We really appreciate it. So they said Bill says Antonio Brown might not be in the NFL. I think he'll be in the NFL. I think he's been a good enough soldier, and I think he'll end up somewhere. I still tend to believe they'll be back in Tampa Bay. We'll talk about Brown here in a second. And Fournette may have to wait until after the draft before any team signs him. I don't think that's going to end up being the case either. I think the Bucs may be looking at the draft for potential running back help. I see a lot of people have told me, well, if they sign Fournette, then they're not going to draft one. No, like if they sign Fournette, like they're still going to draft one. If they signed James White, they were still going to draft one. Like I fully expect, I'd be shocked if they didn't draft a running back in the first 3 rounds. I would be very surprised if they didn't.
And just, I mean, we've also brought it up as well, but, you know, you look at this running back position after next season. Ronald Jones probably going to take his money and try and go and play somewhere else. I think if he has a good year, there's a team that'll pay him. So when you draft a guy, you make up for potentially losing 2 running backs or 1 running back, depending on if they bring back Leonard Fournette and in what capacity. So you plan for the future a little bit. But let me ask you one question about that pick at 32. You know, right at the end of the season, when people first started doing mock drafts, which I know for you is like in November, but when people really first started focusing on the draft for the Buccaneers coming up here, pick 32, they can either have some fun, take best player available. They don't really have any glaring needs they have to address, except for maybe like some depth on the defensive line or an edge rusher. But I remember you told me your first thought is that they're not even going to pick at 32. They're just going to trade back into the second round, get some more picks. Do you still feel that way? Like, do you still feel like there's a good possibility they trade out of 32, or do you think they just kind of have fun with that pick?
I think it's still a possibility. I'm not going to rule that out completely. Because I think, well, in an ideal world, there's somebody that they really like that falls to them, and then they just pick them at 32. But there is a world where Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, Jalen Phillips, Christian Barmore, Azeez Ojulari, all those guys are gone, and the Buccaneers are sitting there like, you know, like, I don't really want to take any of these people at 32. So why not just trade back, get a few more picks? Not sure what you'd get, but you know, there's definitely some teams out there that'll be sitting at the top of the second round in the first 10 picks or so in the second round that would definitely want to move up to jump somebody. So we'll see what happens. I'm gonna bet that they'll probably stay at 32 at this point, but I do think that they'll definitely entertain offers no matter what. But I think their hope is that there's just somebody there that they really like, and they'll just pick them. So a lot of, you know, there's some Joseph Osai stuff here. Hope he falls to 64, but I doubt it. Yeah, if you want Joseph Osai, he's going to have to be the pick at 32. Or you could, that's another guy. Maybe you could trade back into the second round, a few more picks, pick up an extra pick, and still get him. Javonte Williams is another guy, the running back from North Carolina. He's another guy like that. Earlier, it's TB Buccaneers on Instagram. Crazy to think about, but can we sign Lenny and trade Rojo in 32 to move up for Najee? I don't think that's very likely.
I think the Bucs are going to have a little bit more stock in Ronald Jones just because they drafted him. You know what I mean? I really think that's what that boils down to.
Yeah, and I also don't think the Bucs are going to be trading up for really anybody in this year's draft, at least not in the first round. Like, I understand they moved up 1 spot for Tristan Wirfs, but I don't think they're going to be moving up for anybody. If Johnson makes further improvements, do you even need AB? Well, yeah, but you don't know if Johnson's going to make those improvements. Nobody has a crystal ball.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like I want to put some faith in Tyler Johnson because he did show us some great things last season. He had one of the most critical catches of the playoff run. But you don't really know. If Antonio Brown's here, you're not going to get a big healthy dose of Tyler Johnson. But I do think that if AB ultimately does not come back, you know, I can put some faith in a guy like Tyler Johnson. From what we've seen, granted, kind of similar to Keyshawn Vaughn, where the sample size isn't huge. But from what we've seen from Tyler Johnson, we've made some comparisons to like Chris Godwin, and he's just a good receiver to have out there. And I think the Buccaneers have done a really, really good job of always keeping that wide receiver room nothing less than elite at this point. And Tyler Johnson, just a guy that can potentially add to that. But if AB doesn't come back, I would like to see some more TJ for sure.
Yeah. So there's a few things in the chat here. G Vegas says, I would like Bucs to build interior offensive line depth and get at least one edge rusher. I think that's smart. You should, always, I think, kind of look for that depth along the offensive and defensive lines. I do think they need a third edge rusher because Anthony Nelson just isn't that guy. So let's see. Would you rather keep Lenny or Antonio Brown? I would rather keep Antonio Brown. If we're talking about football, if we are talking about pure football and none of the off-field stuff, so let's say, there is no concerns about Brown. If you're talking about football, I would rather keep Antonio Brown because I think he's actually more valuable to the Bucs than Leonard Fournette is. I think the Bucs can find a suitable replacement for Leonard Fournette easier than they can find Antonio Brown.
I agree. Now, our buddy Aaron Schnitzer, who I believe is also TB Buccaneers on Instagram, Jarrett Patterson, going to be the best running back in the draft behind Najee. What are your thoughts on Patterson?
I like him, man. From Buffalo, he's a solid running back. I think he's probably, you could probably pick him in a third round because you got to think their picks this year are so late. And I had to remind somebody the other day. Somebody asked me, they're like, "Oh, isn't that a little high for a certain player that we were talking about?" And I was like, well, you got to think this year their picks are so late that it's essentially the next round.
Right.
So their third round pick is essentially a fourth round pick. So, yeah, I would have no problems with Patterson there if they hadn't already addressed it. I think maybe he's there in the fourth, but you don't really want to risk it that much. So, Ben Leeper, is it just me that is highly against keeping Lenny? I can name 5 other options. I'd rather have that probably be cheaper too. Yeah, well, I think the reason Leonard Fournette would come back is if he's cheaper. The Buccaneers are clearly they're not going to pay him big money at this point. Like I think that's out the window.
And something I wanted to bring up earlier too. We talked about the possibility of Leonard Fournette sticking around, not really getting signed by anybody until after the draft. Listen. If after the draft comes around and Leonard Fournette is still a free agent, I think it's a 99% chance he's going to be coming back to Tampa Bay. Just because if you've waited that long to field your market, maybe you've had some offers, but if you're going to get paid $1 million more than what the Bucs are putting on the table for him, why would you not stick with the defending Super Bowl champions? But I can definitely understand where Ben is coming from because as far as I'm concerned as well, it's not that I don't like Leonard Fournette, but I've said it on this show before. He had a great playoff run. Playoff Lenny is, a Bucs legend at this point. But what did he do during the regular season? I mean, the guy was almost cut in December.
For a reason, not just no reasons. Like it was for they literally had Ronald Jones, LaShawn McCoy, and Keyshawn Vaughn, and they were still like, we might cut Leonard Fournette too.
Yeah,
like that's how bad it was. So let's see. Neil says if Jalen Phillips is there at 32, you got to take him. I agree. I love Jalen Phillips. Chase, there will still be good options at 64, in my opinion. Basham, Tryon could be there. Joe Tryon's a player I like. I have an interview coming out with him on the page soon. I talked to him one-on-one a few weeks ago. Cool dude. He's a cool dude.
You ever mention to these guys that you have an award-winning Bucs podcast too, that maybe they could come on?
It's all complicated. That's like all those media appearances and stuff. That's like all agents and it's all.
You could just trick them into it. Be like, hey man, can you do an Instagram live? And then you can just hold your phone and we'll do an hour-long show with them.
And you just can't get out of it.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, a lot of Demetric Felton stuff here from UCLA. He's an exciting player, and I saw some people sort of ask me. They were like, it's like you said, running back / wide receiver. Like the Bucs don't need a wide receiver. Yeah, I get it. Like they may not, but Demetric Felton sort of does it all. He can line up. He's basically, obviously, a worse Christian McCaffrey. I think he's that type of player. So yeah, I think he could almost be like an Alvin Kamara. I think a guy that you can line up at receiver and you can line up in the backfield, and he's done it a lot. So. Running back options in the first round with Harris, ETN, second round with Williams, and Carter, third round with Gainwell, and potentially Felton. Well, I do think you should be putting Williams in that first round category. They will be considering him at 32. He's likely to be there. They really do like him. So I think Williams would have to be in that first round category.
Vegas brought up a good point, and I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but Donovan Smith, on the topic of his contract, have you guys talked about how Donovan Smith's extension is a win-win for player and team? Smith gets paid $30 million over the next 2 years, but the Buccaneers get a quality starting left tackle for under $16.5 million a year. Yeah, we talked about it at the top of the show. It's a steal for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, it's a very good deal for both sides, I think. Because yet again, he gets to hit the market at 30 years old. It's not like he's done. Like, he still could get a bigger payday.
And shout out to our guy Willie Beeman checking in.
Yep.
Always appreciative of you.
Cordero Patterson is a free agent. He is.
Couple of people, I think I saw someone mention...
Willie did miss the bidding war, but it's all right. It's all right. He did miss the fierce bidding war earlier, but
everybody's supporting the Wendy's Fund.
Let's see. T.Y. Hilton just signed with the Colts. Yeah, it's breaking news. Rondale Moore to the Bucs in the second round. I mean, if you're talking about a fun player, I mean, they could maybe go with a guy like Rondale Moore, but I just don't think he's going to be there in the second round. So I don't think that's going to be a thing. A lot of Cordero Patterson thing here, or I think it's Cordero Patterson. Maybe there's something about Jared Patterson, but I think it's Cordero. I'm going to assume it's Cordero. So he's been an impact player on returning, and like that's what I believe I said on the show, even that like I've prioritized the special teams. I think this year they need a return. They haven't had an impact returner since I've been watching the freaking team.
The last decent returner they had just got arrested on gun charges. Woo!
Was he decent though?
I don't know about decent. I've definitely complained about him on the show before.
Yeah, 100%. I was about to say, I was like, oh my god. Anyways. So teams have tried to put him at receiver. They've tried to put him at running back, and he hasn't really been great. But he is a really good special teams threat, and that's what I would definitely consider it at least. So a few more things here I just wanted to say before we're getting ready to wrap up. Not quite yet, but what are your thoughts on the Bucs drafting a wide receiver early if the fit is there? To potentially replace Godwin. I brought this up to Rhett actually a few weeks ago, just in a private conversation that we had. Now, like, maybe they do if the right one's there at 32 or 64, because Godwin's going to be expensive. Like, I don't think the Buccaneers are going to be willing to pay Mike Evans $16 million and Chris Godwin $20 million. Like, I just don't see them having nearly $40 million invested in two wide receivers. So it's definitely possible that they would look. I don't think it's likely, but I wouldn't be shocked if the right one's there.
And that's the beauty of the pick at 32, is that since there are no glaring needs like we brought up, if you want to address something that's potentially going to be a problem, you get a good head start on it, and drafting a wide receiver at 32, if it's the best player available at that point, that's where you can have some fun and obviously plan for the future. Because I agree. I think Chris Godwin is almost a shoo-in to just make his money next season because he's going to get paid a lot. And the Bucs are not going to pay him. I think when it comes to, breaking down the salary of that wide receiver room, Mike Evans is going to be a little bit of a higher priority just because I think the seniority factor kicks in. And to be frank, I don't know if they're going to have to pay him nearly as much. Maybe he'll get some good money, but I think Chris Godwin might break the wide receiver market next season.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot. Richard sends in a $5 super chat.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Richard.
What about another safety since Andrew Adams walked and Whitehead got hurt? Well, hopefully Whitehead is able to come back full strength. I think they could look for a depth safety. I think we mentioned that last episode, but I don't know if you're going to see like a big name. I think they would maybe like a guy, be that fourth guy kind of, but
yeah, that's the position. I think that if you take a safety, he's going to kind of fill in that spot on the depth chart. He's not going to be, your new starter by any means. He'll kind of fill the role that Andrew Adams left behind, which was fairly scarce.
Let's see. So there's a few things. Any chance the Bucs draft Mac Jones? If he's there, I'm not going to completely rule it out because I think the Bucs themselves would be shocked if he's there. I don't know how they feel about him. I have no idea how they feel about him. But at this point, like, he's going to be a top 15 pick. Bucky Brooks, actually, his latest mock draft I saw last night has the Bucs taking Mac Jones, and I couldn't believe that he was still available. So, no, don't need Mac Jones. Kellen Mond, yeah, I would really prefer Kellen Mond or Jamie Newman. I've been pounding the table for Jamie Newman since the draft ended last year. Like, I've been a real big fan of Jamie Newman. He was played at Wake Forest, transferred to Georgia, and was going to play in Todd Monken's offensive system, but then decided not to play this year. So,
quick question from G Vegas, and just while we're on the topic of Chris Godwin. So, what if Chris Godwin barely has 1,000 yards next season? Then what? I don't think another team will give him a big contract. Honestly,
that's a tough situation.
Listen, I mean, if he's under 1,000 yards, it's going to depend on how much under he is. but I still think there's going to be teams out there that pay him because, listen, if it's not that much of a productive year, if he barely squeaks into the 1,000-yard mark, look at the wide receiver room Tampa Bay has, and, it's not really hard to believe that a guy like Chris Godwin or even Mike Evans would barely get 1,000 yards like Mike did this year or just not get it at all. So I think the film doesn't lie on a guy like Chris Godwin. I think he's a guy that a lot of teams have scouted for multiple years. They knew he was going to be a free agent this season, obviously, if the Bucs didn't tag him, which everybody saw coming. But there's teams who have had him on their radar, and there's going to be a lot of eyes on him. So I think even if he, quote-unquote underperforms, there's still going to be a team out there that pays him. Now, if he gets under 1,000 yards, is he going to break the market like I'm predicting? Who the hell knows? But I still think a team will pay him, even if he doesn't hit that 1K benchmark.
So DeAndre Hopkins makes $27 million a year, and I think that's the highest for a wide receiver. So I think Chris Godwin would probably be still in the $20 million range.
Oh, yeah.
Kenny Galladay's got 18 a year from the Giants, so I think I'd rather have Chris Godwin.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we talked about it. We talked about the Nelson Aguilar deal, but Kenny Galladay? He's a good wide receiver when he's healthy, but I don't know, man. That's just bozo bucks.
Yeah.
For a guy
And
like
then
that.
the other thing, how is Godwin barely reaching 1,000 yards? Is it because this year, like he was injured, he missed multiple games? Is that why? Or is it he's playing in all games, but he's just not getting 1,000 yards?
Not getting the targets,
not
getting the opportunities.
Is he not playing well enough? Is that there's different things there. So Bucs bringing Clayton Gathers. Mr. Bucs Nation suggests maybe they brought him in for a visit in 2019 and didn't sign him. So we'll see if they show any interest there. Draft an outside linebacker, learn behind JPP and Shaq. They might.
That's kind of the top of my big board would be an edge rusher.
Yeah, they got to find that third guy. Got to find that third guy.
Yeah. If you're looking at the draft and what to pick potentially at 32, I like the idea of an edge rusher. I do think they can have fun with the pick. If you go running back, what the hell ever. But I like an edge rusher. Add that third guy to the rotation. Give JPP and Shaq a little bit of a break every now and again.
Yeah. So, let's see. Bateman is great. That will be there. Yeah, some Rashad Bateman love there. Kellen Mond has all the skills, just horrible mechanics. With some coaching up from Tom B.A., he could be special. I like Kellen Mond. Yeah, I think he's got an NFL skill set. So,
holy hell. Willie Beeman coming in clutch, baby.
Willie.
The donation is for the fellas into a potential A-plus NFL draft for our favorite Super Bowl champions. I'd like to see an outside linebacker and a 3-4 defensive end with the first two picks. Go Bucs. Listen, Willie Beeman wasn't even here for the bidding war, and he won the whole damn thing, James.
He won it. He won it, James.
So, Willie Beeman, whenever you're ready, I got to take you out to lunch because you won the bidding war. That's what James said was the prize for winning, and you came in here and absolutely crushed it. Thank you so much for supporting the Wendy's Fund, my friend.
Awesome. Thanks so much. We are going to be sitting here eating some freaking Baconators, man. It's going to be like an hour-long show.
My arteries are going to be so clogged.
Evan, would you take a running back over pass rush at 32? Well, it all depends on what pass rush. If it's Jalen Phillips or Azeez Ojulari, no. But if it's Joseph Osai and like Najee Harris is sitting there, probably take Najee Harris. If it's Joseph Osai and Javonte Williams is the only one there, then probably I'd probably take Joseph Osai. So it all depends on really who's there. So Willie came in, just smoked James.
Oh, dude,
shot.
Willie came in, and I mean, he set the tone. He threw it all on the table, and everybody's a little bit intimidated now. Good stuff, Willie.
Should the Bucs bring back Quan? That's not going to happen.
No.
And I'll tell you why. Why there's not even really a discussion to me. They've already signed Kevin Minter, who's going to be the backup middle linebacker. Quan Alexander is not a good enough pass rusher to be converted to an outside linebacker in this defense. So he'd have to be one of those middle linebacker roles. And he's not like, they're just not going to get him for a backup.
Kevin says if you guys don't show up on the next stream eating Wendy's, I'll be disappointed. We might have to.
Yeah,
we might have to hold that promise.
I might have to.
I'm going to be in and out of bites of my burger saying, welcome to Campfire Podcast. Thank you for supporting the Wendy's Fund.
If you want more episodes like this, donate. I lost all respect for Quan when he cheap shotted Jameis in the head week 1, 2019. I remember. So if you guys want to go back.
I don't remember what episode it is.
I don't know, but it's just I forget what it's
It
called.
was actually the episode after that game, so I don't know the
Yeah,
episode number, but if you
it's
want to
the
do the
episode.
math.
It's the episode after that 49ers game. For one, I blast Jameis Winston, but also Rhett blasts Quan Alexander for that hit. And I believe he had said some extreme things about Quan Alexander on that show. So go back and listen to it because it's something.
Somebody had posted that clip on Twitter a little while. It was okay. So when Quan announced that he signed with the Saints, somebody posted that particular clip on Twitter, and I laughed my ass off. I'm not going to say what I said because I know I said it on this show, but I shouldn't repeat it. But yeah, I don't really care for a guy like Quan Alexander back in Tampa Bay. I was a fan of him while he was here. He went to San Francisco, got pretty overpaid. Prove that he's still kind of injury prone, and that in the grand scheme of things, he's just kind of overrated.
It is called Same Old Bucs.
Oh damn!
It is episode 65. So
see, I don't know why you had to go back and find it.
I did because I need the people to know. I need the people to know.
Do you see one of the elder edge rushers like Ingram go ring chasing with us for a year for a vet minimum if we don't draft one? Good question from G Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at a guy like Ryan Kerrigan, maybe.
Yeah.
That'd be my top choice. I think Kerrigan's been a solid player for a while now. Hasn't been on that same level that he used to be, but I think Melvin Ingram's probably a little bit too unrealistic. He's probably looking for a little bit more money, but I think a guy like Ryan Kerrigan, it doesn't seem like a return to Washington's going to happen. So
our buddy Chase hunting down the episode. I think James remembers the quote we were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, but back to the point, I would reach out to Ryan Kerrigan. I would think if they would sign Ryan Kerrigan, it would really push down outside linebacker, maybe to the second or third round, which would be fine, right? It would leave you even more options to take anybody you wanted at 32.
Yeah.
Maybe that's their goal. Just, 32, you can just be blindfolded, throw something that have names on a dartboard, throw the dart, and whoever it lands on, that's your pick, I guess.
John from the UK, he says, I'd prefer to see Riley Below back over Quan. Yeah, I like that, man. Bring back Joe Dirt.
I forgot about him.
I think he's slinging real estate now, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't think he's playing football anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, so can't wait for OJ this season. OJ is going to be a great tight end. I think, his potential can be. Didn't draft Kerrigan. The Bucs did not draft Ryan Kerrigan. Kerrigan was a draft pick of the formerly the Redskins and now obviously the Washington football team, but he was a draft pick of them and he's played his entire career with them.
Kevin522 says, I don't know about you guys, but I would be intrigued by an open competition at right guard between Aaron Stinney and Alex Kappa. And I will say this. With Aaron Stinney coming back, Buccaneers re-signing him obviously is a good depth piece to have, but I think Aaron Stinney, his performance in the playoffs, you got to light a fire up under Alex Kappa's ass just a little bit because, I mean, he definitely looked like he belonged there. And, if Alex Kappa were to go down again, the first guy I trust to be at that right guard spot is Aaron Stinney. But that's a good point. I really think there could be a case for competition between those two guys.
Yeah. James says goodbye. Gotta go get food, whatever.
You already spent all your food money.
Ben asked, do you guys think we'll still cut Bray? It's not necessarily at this point, but I just don't feel comfortable paying a tight end $6 million, tight end $3 million. I'd be pretty surprised if Bray's back at that number. I wouldn't be surprised if he's back. I'd be surprised if he's back at that number. So we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. Contract year for Kappa, definitely. It'll be interesting to see. Cheers, everyone. Got the head off. Thanks, John. Thanks for coming in all the way from the UK. Really appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
See a preseason vet signing to help boost his team again. They signed LaShawn McCoy and Leonard Fournette, so right before the season started. So it's definitely interesting. It could happen.
So we'll take one more here, and I think we can have some fun with this one. Comes from our buddy Aaron. Super Bowl 56 predictions. As we wrap this thing up, ladies and gentlemen, firstly, thank you so much for hanging out. But let's go ahead and throw these predictions out a full year early. Well, damn. You know what? I'll put mine out there. I'll go first. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased, but
a little bit.
Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with a chance to run it back, make it all the way to Super Bowl 56. I do think they win, just because I'm a little biased. Best team in the world right now. But I think their opponent from the AFC is the Buffalo Bills. I like the Bills for the Super Bowl next season. I think Josh Allen is going to have just a great follow-up to the MVP caliber season he had last season, and I think he'll have a great year. I think the Bills really get everything going. That defense is still good. They're a good team to root for in the AFC, and I'd like to see them play Tampa in the Super Bowl. So Super Bowl 56, I have got Tampa Bay and Buffalo going at it.
I got the same one. I mean, I normally, like, I literally, like, I sit there and, like, try to predict, like, the whole season, like, stuff like that, but I didn't predict the Bucs in the Super Bowl last year, but, like, whatever. And normally I probably wouldn't again this year, but whatever. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They won it this year, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. So, Evan, are you waiting after the draft for season predictions? Yeah, we normally do season predictions actually in the summer, but once we have a full schedule of times, days, when that is, because like you don't know, are they playing New England in September or are they playing New England in December when it's kind of colder? That could impact it like that. So we wait a little bit for that.
I don't care when they play New England. It can be the middle of spring for all I care. Bucs by 50. As long as they got Cam Newton under center, I am perfectly okay with watching that pass rush get after him and Tom Brady just doing his damn thing.
I don't understand people saying New England's going to – I mean, I think New England will be improved, but, like, as long as Cam Newton is their guy and he's QB1 on the depth chart, they're not going to the Super Bowl. When do you guys do the draft show? We will be doing our draft coverage here shortly. We got a lot of things planned, some stuff that we've never actually done before. We're going to have basically 3 shows, and I can't really reveal the details on those shows quite yet, but we're going to have 3 draft shows before the draft, and then obviously after the draft, do the draft review. So we'll have all the draft coverage you guys need. When does the schedule release? Typically, it used to release 2 weeks before the draft, so it would normally release in about 2 weeks from now. But last year, I believe it released like a week and a half, 2 weeks after the draft.
So like middle of May almost.
Yeah, it was. I believe it was like May 7th or something. So Bucs Chiefs rematch, and Chiefs did something better this time and scored a touchdown against the Bucs. Bucs win 38-13. All right.
I like that, man. Listen, thank you guys so much for checking out this episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. We're going to start to wrap things up here, but shout out to all of our people in the live chat, our moderators, of course, doing a good job there in the chat. G Vegas, Kevin522, Willie Beeman coming in with that super chat and landed all on the table. We truly do appreciate your guys' support.
Real quick question. When is the ring ceremony? I don't know.
Thursday night to open the season, right?
No, the ring. Like, when did they get the rings?
Right.
I don't know. With COVID and everything, I don't know.
Yeah, man, it sucks. Like, I don't know if the Bucs will get a true, ring ceremony like we've seen other teams get in the past. I mean, you never know. Now that it's the off season, I don't know if they'll do it at the team facility, but I don't know. Maybe they meet up at Burns Steakhouse and do it there. Who the hell knows? But with a season, with a COVID year like we just had, there really is no telling. But hopefully soon, because I am excited to see that ring design. Man, you bet your ass I'm going to be buying one too. So I'll get myself a little bit of a replica. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for checking out this episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. If you're checking us out live on YouTube, if you have not yet, subscribe to the channel. We got plenty of great Buccaneers content. We try to keep you guys updated as quickly as we can when stuff comes out. So glad we were able to jump on here and talk to you guys for about an hour today. Had a great time. If you're listening on any of our podcast outlets, check us out over there as well. Anywhere you download a podcast, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, I mean, literally anywhere. I think there's one called Chatterbox, which nobody uses, but we're on there too. So there we go. Oh, look at that. Mr. Bucs Nation. He's back as we're leaving. Thanks, James. That's what it was.
He's back. Yeah, that's real nice.
He left the house, realized he spent all of his lunch money like I told him he did, and then he turned around and came right back.
Yep. Mrs. Bucs Nation is very disappointed in him right now.
Check out the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show. And, of course, Buccaneer news as it happens. Speaking of Bucs news as it happens, you can check out my co-host Evan on Instagram at Bucs_daily, the #1 place to go for Buccaneers news. #1 fan page on Instagram is what I meant to say. You can also find him on Twitter at EvanNFL. Last but not least, you can find myself Instagram and Twitter at Redicus, RHETTAKUS. And if you follow me, I will follow you back. We'll talk to you guys soon. I'm sure the Buccaneers are not done making things happen, so we'll have some more to talk about here shortly. Until then, I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, signing off from my co-host, Evan Wanish, and we'll talk to you guys next time. As always,